Good day. Welcome to another lesson on our Super Dealmaker Entrepreneurship Master Program. Today we're still looking at our skills program, how to implement systems and procedures and processes within an organization. And today's module will be looking at how to take corrective or preventative actions when things are not going the way they're supposed to within the system. Remember, when we started talking about these systems and procedures, I've indicated that your growth as an entrepreneur or your business growth is dependent on the systems that you put in place. Right? You can't be everywhere within the business as the business grows. So what you need to do is to make sure that you implement systems and procedures and processes so that even when you are not there, your business can operate without you. You don't have to be there to make decisions. Your employees must know the processes that they need to follow, what is the system, what is required within the organization to make certain decisions. Yes, there are certain decisions that you're still going to make as an entrepreneur or as an executive or as a shareholder. But operational decisions, some, not all of them, you can delegate them to employees, but you don't delegate without giving them processes that they need to follow or the procedures that they need to follow to implement certain business activities and the decisions that needs to be made while you are not there. Because if you continue, I know at the beginning, you are everything. You are HR, you are marketing, you are operational, you are a lawyer, accountant, whatever it is that needs to be done, it's normally you who will be doing it. Now, I'm referring to mainly a one-man show or the startups where you are starting, you're still alone. But that being said, that you still do everything, but you need to develop a culture of implementing systems. And if you start early on in your journey as an entrepreneur, then it will make it easier. As you grow, the culture of your organization will be that culture of systems and processes. And I've indicated when we're doing our case studies, most especially the McDonald's case study, to say McDonald's has grown to what it is today because they implemented proper systems and procedures and processes. So when McDonald's moved from one country to another, it's just plug and play. Because they have systems, they have processes, they have training manuals, they have everything. So even for you as an SMME or a growing business, you need to make sure that you put systems in place so that as you grow, you don't find yourself in busyness where you're busy with a lot of things. Your job as an entrepreneur or as a director, it must be to strategic thinking and stakeholder engagement, corporate governance issues on a strategic level rather than operational. Yes, I understand. Sometimes it's one-man show. You still have to be operational and strategic at the same time. But to implement systems is to help you that even if you are not there, or you are sick, or you have to go leave or travel, somebody else can come in and still be able to do the job that you were doing. So the system or the systems and procedures must be so clear that when a person is coming into the organization, they need to know what to do. Right. So that's the whole concept of, or the whole skills program that we're looking at. And today we're looking at the corrective and preventative measures that you take. In any systems, things can go wrong. There's always that risk that things can go wrong. And as an institution or as a business, you need to implement systems and procedures that will enable you to take corrective actions if something goes wrong. If there is a customer complaint, then there must be systems and procedures that an employee must follow to deal with a customer complaint, for argument's sake. So it's one of those. This is one example of corrective actions or preventative. Okay, in this case, it's a corrective action to say if something wrong, the product fails, there must be a process that needs to be followed, and your employee must know what is that process, so that they don't communicate something different to the client and later realize that it cannot be done. So it needs to be clear up front to say, if there's a customer complaint, this is how it needs to be handled. If you have maybe a marketing manager, should be handled by a marketing manager, for example, you need to report it there, and the marketing manager must know that they need to resolve this issue within 24 hours, 36 hours, whatever the period that they've been given. So that is a corrective action. And then on the preventative actions, those are actions that prevent certain things from happening. And surely, for example, by implementing systems and procedures, you are already taking a preventative measure in terms of your business to make sure that your business doesn't fail. Okay, it's not a guarantee that you don't fail, but you are preventing. It's an action. By implementing systems and procedures, you are preventing the likelihood of your business failing. So it becomes a preventative measure. Or sometimes, like they say, for you to drive, you need to have a license. They're trying to prevent road accidents. They still happen, but because people who are driving are people who are trained. So in that way, you are preventing certain things that shouldn't happen, like road accident. But coming back to your business, it's like your employee orientation, employee training, on-the-job training. Those things are very important because they teach employee to learn how to do certain things, rather than throwing them in the deep end without proper orientation and training. Then they can tend to make mistakes depending on the type of business that you're running. But they can make mistakes, and the mistakes can be costly. So to prevent such mistakes, you need to make sure that you implemented proper preventative actions, like employee orientation. You need to orientate your employees, make sure that they understand the environment that they'll be working in, make sure that they understand the type of customers that they will be dealing with, and making sure that they can actually do their job. Because if you're hiring people who are not competent, sometimes you hire new people who don't have experience, but you need to make sure that the way you allocate responsibilities to them, you allocate responsibilities that they have ability or they are competent to execute, so that you prevent unnecessary errors. So in system thinking or system management or system implementation, one of orientation and employee training becomes very, very critical for preventative actions. We're going to go into corrective actions, but now obviously your priority as an institution or as a business, it must be to take preventative actions. And one of the preventative actions is one, to implement your systems and procedures to make sure that you give your business a chance to survive or to be successful, because without systems, then your business might fail. So it's one of the first key preventative measure that you can take as an entrepreneur. And the second one is it comes to the hiring and training and orientation of your employees. Make sure that you hire competent people, or if you have project, you make sure that you hire competent people. You provide them with proper orientation in terms of what to expect, in terms of the culture, the job, and all those, the deliverables, and you train the employees in terms of how they're supposed to execute their responsibilities. So that's on the key, one of the key preventative measures that as a business you need to take, because without employee training, first employee being competent, without orientation, without training, then you are applying for disaster. Because remember, as they normally say, your employees are key to your business success, because they're the ones who will be executing the activities. And if they're not trained, if they're not well orientated in what is expected, and if they're not competent, then they might not be able to deliver on what they expect or on their key responsibilities. And if they fail to deliver on their key responsibilities, obviously it's gonna affect your business, because ultimately you want to make sure that you service your customers and your customers are happy. But if you have incompetent employees who are not trained, who are not orientated properly in terms of the business, then they will end up delivering poor service to your customers, and you might lose your customers. So remember the first one I said is to make sure that you implement systems and procedures and processes within your business. That's one preventative measure to make sure that you succeed. The second one is make sure that you have competent employees within the organization. There's a proper orientation, there's proper training that you provide to employees. Those two will really prevent a lot of things or a lot of mistakes. And that's why we have, as part of our entrepreneurship program, we make sure that we have one employee development as a module, training and development, and then we have systems and procedures as key modules, because these two things, they tend to trip most of SMMEs because they tend to ignore them. Even though, as I'm telling you now, they are critical, but entrepreneurs generally will find that they are concerned about delivering, which is good, but you need to make sure that you have your administrative stuff in order to prevent one. Sometimes it's just waste of time, because if you don't have systems, like your filing systems and all, the document get lost. Every time somebody asks for something, it will take you an hour to find them. That's basic things like that. You find that you're wasting a lot of time looking for documents, not knowing where you are, not collecting your money. So if you have systems in place, then it reduces a lot of unnecessary time wastage, because you'll know where to find what. Everyone knows what to do. Even if you are not there, people know who to call, what to do in this situation. So that now it makes your business a little bit more efficient. And on the other side, you need to have competent employees or well-trained employees that are capable of open to delivering without you being there. Even if you don't have the employees, and as an entrepreneur, sometimes we'll go into sectors that we are not experienced in. We might have identified an opportunity and we jump in. But it's still very important for you now as an entrepreneur. Remember, now I was talking about you training, orientating, and making sure that your employees are competent. It also applies to you. Let's say if you are one-man show, to make sure that you understand the industry that you are going in, attend seminars, education, train yourself to make sure that you are competent in that space. And sometimes we make mistakes to think that because we've been working in this space, then we are competent in that space. I can tell you now that actually the opposite is true. That because in an employment environment, you have the support, you have other department helping you, you have somebody that you're reporting to. But when you go into a new venture on your own, you become everything. So you might think that you're the best in the space, but you find that no, you are not. Because in a working environment, you have other support. But if you are an entrepreneur, you are the one who's giving the support. And the approach is different. Remember, if you're starting up, you don't have the brand, you don't have the systems that have been fine-tuned over a period of time. So you are new, the brand is not known, you don't have the history and the experience. So you must make sure that you empower yourself, you train yourself, you get industry knowledge, you engage with people who've been in that space for some time, and that will make sure that you prevent a lot of things that could happen, that shouldn't happen. Remember, as you're starting or as you're growing your business, the learning curve is very, very steep. So to reduce that, you must implement certain control mechanisms that you can afford, like making sure that you are up to date, you understand the sector, you are training yourself, you are consulting, you get a mentor. So those things will help you prevent a lot of mistakes. So please make sure that you address that. So I just wanted, in terms of the preventative measure, to address these two key things, to say, make sure that you have a team that's competent. You are also competent in the space, and where necessary, if possible, get a mentor and get an advisory board, whatever that you can get to support you, so that you don't make mistakes. You prevent mistakes before they happen, because if they happen, then they might be the mistakes might be costly. And remember, the corrective and preventative actions also relate to your risk management. As a business, you need to make sure that you have a risk management policy. You can go through in our project module or corporate governance. We address the risk management component in detail, but basically what it means is you need to look at your business, identify the risks that could happen in your business, and implement the mitigation strategies. Like, you need to take, like, large organizations don't have a long list of their risks. They identify the risk and the likelihood of the risk happening, and the severity of that risk. If it had to happen, what will happen to your business? So those are the things that you look at. So you need to have a list of potential risks, and you put a mitigating factor depending on how they are, because some risks can be high, some can be low, depending on the sector that you are in. But if you do the risk assessment, then you'll see which risks are likely to happen, and you implement the necessary mitigating strategies. So now we're still on the prevention side. You are preventing certain things from happening by just looking at your business, understanding the sector that you're in, understanding the potential risks that can happen. And once you understand the potential risks, then you will be able to develop mitigating strategies, so that those risks, they don't materialize. Because if they do, some risk can actually destroy your business. So that's why in risk management, you identify the risks, and then you rank them to which one is highly likely to happen, and the impact of that risk. It's like maybe if you are in training, the risk, it might be losing maybe your accreditation, and you need to look at it. How likely is that risk can materialize? It's very likely. If you don't follow the processes, if you don't orientate the learners and all those things, you don't achieve the things that the CETAs or the QCTO or Department of Education set for you, they can take away your accreditation. And if they take away your accreditation, then your business is destroyed. So you can see this risk is very high. It's because it's likely to happen. And if it happens, the impact is massive. It can result in the business going under. Yes, you can still offer maybe unaccredited courses and all those things, but your reputation and how the customers view you will be different than when you're offering accredited courses. So if let's say in this case you're running a training institution, one of losing your accreditation might be one of the highest risks, or it might be in your top 10. Then you need to make sure that if you identify that risk like that, then you put on the mitigating factors to say, look, yes, what is the risk of us losing the accreditation, and what are the actions that you need to put in place to make sure that we don't lose this accreditation? Maybe training the employees, making sure that you get updated on the level of accreditations, and making sure that you request, maybe you build a good relationship with your QCTO or your CETA, and making sure that you provide quality learnings, and ensuring that when you're providing trainings, all the health and safety stuff are covered and all those things. So now, but it takes you to train the employees, or you should know how to do those things. And we should have systems and processes to make sure that you run your training institution the way you're supposed to run it. Then, you see now, if you have the systems and processes and procedures on how to run your business, then it reduces that risk of your institution losing the accreditation. So that's how you implement the preventative measures. And yeah, so you need to look at your risk management side of things, understand what are your top 10 risks, or what are your major risks. You don't have to limit yourself to only top 10. What are your major risks that can happen? And then you put your strategic, mitigating actions that you're going to take to make sure that risk doesn't materialize. And another main preventative action that you can take is making sure that you have the necessary insurances for your business. Remember, some businesses are not insured. Maybe you are using equipment and all that. They can be stolen, lightning. There can be other things. They can get damaged. But if they are not insured, or they are not under warranty, whatever, then if you lose the equipment, then your business might go under. It's like maybe having a startup trucking business. You only have one truck, and you don't insure that truck, and unfortunately you get involved in an accident. Then your whole asset is destroyed. And if your asset is destroyed and you don't have a way of recovering, then your business is gone. So if you are in the trucking business, obviously the risk of you losing the truck, or your trucks getting involved in accidents, are very, very high. And what are the preventative actions that you will take to make sure that you don't lose your truck? Is one of them is insurance. And the other thing, maybe maintenance, and making sure that you hire good employees. Okay, but that you can't guarantee. But obviously, if you have a good recruitment process, then that can help you in preventing certain things that shouldn't happen. So that's on the preventative side of things. It's very, very important, because sometimes we focus on corrective measures. But the corrective measures are more involved. They are costly. You don't want to get there. If where possible, avoid getting into a space where now you have to take corrective actions. So if you implement proper preventative measures, then those preventative measures will help you not to get into corrective actions. Because if you get into corrective actions, then yeah, it might be not all corrective actions are a problem. But remember, if you don't have systems and your business starts failing because you're not meeting customers' demands and all those things, now to build that trust and confidence from customers again, it will take you long. It might take you forever, or you might not even recover from that. But if you had implemented systems and procedures and processes, they could have prevented customers losing confidence or losing trust in you, in your business. So you might not have to get into the corrective actions where obviously if the customers lost confidence, you might start giving discounts, giving extra service and all those things. And those things now, if you can look at it, they're very, very costly. So it would have been better if you have implemented corrective actions rather than, if you implemented preventative actions rather than corrective actions. That's where systems comes in. That's where implementing systems becomes very, very, very important. It can save you a lot, can make your life easier, and it can prevent you from being in trouble. Because corrective actions are actually stressful. Because remember, if you start taking corrective actions, that means something has already gone wrong. And sometimes you might not even recover from it. So focus more on developing good risk management system, developing systems and procedures and processes, making sure that you have proper corporate governance, making sure that you hire competent employees, but once you hire them, make sure that you train and develop them and properly orientate them. By doing some of these things, having systems, corporate governance, making sure that you have well-trained employees, making sure that you do proper risk management and you take your insurances and all that, it can now reduce the risk of your business failing and reduce the stress. Because running your own business is very, very stressful. Before you get to being a successful business, you will obviously go through rough patches. And then if you don't have systems, then those rough patches, they can be the end of you. So focus on putting preventative actions in place. And as I said, the list that I gave you of systems, training, risk management, corporate governance and all that, it's not a complete list. It's just a guide. I'm just giving you a guide to say, if you're running a business, make sure that you don't want to get into starting correcting things. Corrective actions are stressful, intense, costly, and you don't want to be there. You'd rather be preventing those. I know it looks like it's unlikely that certain things can happen because it's you. But believe me, bad things happen. So they must find you having systems and processes that will prevent catastrophic end to your business or to employees. Or remember, if you don't have preventative measures, employees can die, people can get injured and all those things because you fail to follow systems, you fail to follow processes. Like it might be in construction. If you don't follow processes, if you don't have procedures, if you don't have trained employees on safety issues, then people can die on construction site. And it will be sitting on you. And remember, if a person died, actually in that case, you can't even correct that because it has happened already. And the person, they've lost their lives. So make sure that you prevent certain things. Because if they happen, the example that I gave on the training, if you lose your accreditations, then business is as good as dead. And you might have worked hard to get it to a certain level. And once you lose the accreditation there, then it will definitely destroy you. Okay, some people are stronger. Don't necessarily it will destroy you, but it will really affect you, it will affect your business and all that. So rather than getting there, make sure that you have proper corrective, preventative measures that you put in place as a business so that you don't get into implementing the corrective measures. Okay, so that's on preventative measures. Now we're going to look at the corrective measures. Okay, on the corrective actions, obviously the corrective actions supposed to come into play after the systems and processes and policies that you have put in place have failed. Because if you don't have those, then you just automatically in the corrective actions. And as I said earlier, implementing corrective actions is time wasting. You're gonna spend time chasing your tail, putting out fires. So you must prevent the fire rather than try to put out the fire. That's the key message from this lesson. Yes, we're going into discussing in terms of how you put out the fire. But the main thing is you mustn't get yourself in a position where you're supposed to be putting out the fire. All right. So when it comes to corrective actions, right, you should be able to identify the problem. Then you analyze the root cause. What caused the problem? And you put the action plan in place. Then you monitor the situation, and then you adjust where it's required, and you go back to the preventative action to make sure that it doesn't happen. So identify the problem. Sometimes the problem that you identify, it might be a symptom, right? Let's say you continuously, customers are complaining about your service, right? Yes, customer complaint on its own, it is a problem because you don't want your customers complaining. And every time the customer complains, then you need to deal with that specific customer complaint. But that's not the root cause. Then you need to go back to understanding how did it happen that you got to a point where the customer is complaining, right? Because the customer is not supposed to complain to start with. Okay, customers are sometimes just difficult, but generally, customers are not supposed to be complaining. They might be complaining about there's something wrong with your processes, either the production process or the selling process or the buying process. There might be something wrong with that process, right? Then you need to go back and look what's causing this problem. Is it the system? Are we not doing certain things the way we're supposed to do them? Is the system not working on certain areas where there's a leak of things that are not supposed to? Or is it the employees? Maybe they're not competent, or they're not trained, or they don't know what to do. They haven't been orientated on the things that they're supposed to do, right? Yes, it might be an employee who made the mistake, but why did that employee make the mistake? So you need to go to the root cause of the problem that you're trying to resolve. Okay, because sometimes a customer can complain, maybe complain about one employee, maybe many times. Then, if he's complaining about one employee too many times, then you might implement corrective action. Let's say you are disciplining the employee. You consider it as a corrective action. Yes, you go through the disciplinary process and you discipline the employee. Maybe you end up firing the employee. The employee might take you to CCMA. Then you need to go deal with the problem at the CCMA and all those things. Remember, even firing employee is not as simple as I'm saying it, to say you can fire the employee. It's an emotional process that you as an entrepreneur, you might have to go through. But if you go to the root cause, so if you go to the root cause, which might be maybe lack of training or maybe incompetency, or maybe the fit, the employee doesn't fit the job that they've been allocated, you might be able to find maybe a better fit. You might train the employee to become a little bit more competent, maybe give them on-the-job training so that they can improve their skills and all those things. So if you don't look at what did you do wrong before you look at the employee to say, did I give the employee the necessary training? Did I orientate the employee properly? Is the employee generally competent? in that space. Because you might have made a mistake, recruitment mistake. You recruited someone who you shouldn't have recruited because you didn't have proper recruitment policies in place. Or you might have recruited the right person, but you didn't train them well on the job. They don't know what to do. Okay, so, and then that might come out at the end result where the customers are complaining about that particular employee. So looking at the root cause, it's not just maybe look at the whole system to say, where did the system fail? The customer. Was the employee just decided, okay, there are some employees who decided just to go crazy and do certain things that they're not supposed to do. That happens. Maybe they were angry or they are angry about something that happened even outside the work environment. So they can decide just to go rogue. Then you see that's not because the system failed, but it's because the employee, the root cause is probably outside the organization. Oh, but you still have to have your employee health and wellness staff. Look after your employees so that you can identify, even if they have problems from outside, they can have a system that can help them within the organization to overcome those problems because they are coming from outside. So the root cause might be coming from outside, and internally you might not have employee wellness programs and all those things to identify and prevent those problems from coming into the organization and making sure that the mental health of your employees are just looked after. Yes, it sounds like fancy programs for large corporates, but even SMMEs, because the SMMEs actually is even more stressful. That's where this thing even becomes more important at the SMME startup levels, because it's stressful. Employees work long hours, pay is not that good, and all those things. So those things compound the stress that employees go through, and the stress can have other impacts. But if you're not looking at the root cause, you might just go for the guillotine. I'm firing the employee because he made 2-3 mistakes, to only find that maybe after 2 months you hire a new person and they do maybe more or less the same thing. You fire them, you will be on the replacement process where you're replacing employees. And like hiring a new employee, it's another process that might be costly, and the ones that you fired might take you to CCMAs and all those things, and firing them is also emotions are involved and invested. So looking at the root cause, you need to go a little bit deeper to say what went wrong, where did the system fail, because without identifying the right place where the system failed, you might be curing the symptom rather than curing the root cause. Right. And okay, that's the on identifying the root cause, but identifying the problem, we know in this case we're talking about what do you call it? I said it was a customer complaint, but there can be other problems like maybe productivity or staff morale and those things. They can be problems. You need to be able to identify the problem that you're dealing with, so that when you go into the root cause, you know what you're dealing with, how to deal with it. Because without identifying the problem, you wouldn't know what it is that you're dealing with. So identify the problem, it goes deeper. It goes hand in hand to say, here's the problem, the customer is unhappy, or here's the problem, we're not producing as much as we're supposed to, or here's the problem, maybe the business is not growing as much as planned or as per our business plan. That's the problem. What's causing that? You look at the system as a whole. Where is the system failing us? Because your system might be failing you somewhere. And now, once you've identified the problem, you identify the root cause. Now you need to develop an action plan. Basically, an action plan is the actions that you're going to take to correct the problem, so that this problem, you don't experience it again. Or if you can eliminate it, then you need to make sure that you reduce it. Because there are certain problems. I mean, you can't, if you're dealing with customers, you can't eliminate customer complaints, but you can reduce them by training your employees and doing certain things. So the action plan, it needs to be obviously realistic, achievable and doable and all those things. So you need to put action plan in place to correct whatever the problem is. If it's an employee development issue, you deal with that. If it's an employee making repeated mistakes, then you need to put corrective actions in place. You take action, put them on a disciplinary hearing, and follow the processes. Remember, when you're taking corrective actions, they must be well thought of, and they must follow a certain process. I mean, dealing with employee problem where employee is causing a business problem, so losing money or whatever, theft or whatever, you still have to follow the processes. You need to call the employee to disciplinary hearing, give them fair hearing and all that, and until the dismissal process. That's Labor Relations Act. It doesn't matter if you saw the employee stealing something, you still have to take them through the disciplinary process. You need to hear their side of the story before you dismiss them. Because if you dismiss them before you give them a fair hearing, then it's unfair dismissal. And you can lose that case when you go to the CCMA. So whatever action plans that you put in place, you need to make sure that take into account the law. They must be thought through, and make sure that you put action plans that will have a long-lasting impact on the business. Because if they're not thought through and they're not well crafted, you will keep on putting action plans in place. And you need to make sure that you also capture the lesson learned from that problem that you're solving, so that in future you will be able to refer to it when maybe somebody else is experiencing the same problem within the organization. They will have the lesson learned part that they can go to understand where did we go wrong, what can we do better. And then action plans need to be implemented and monitored. Remember, sometimes if maybe in the case of, let's say it's an employee or it's the customer complaint, then you realize that no, the system is broken on the training side. We're not training our employees the way we're supposed to. Then maybe you implement a training program to say, excuse me, this is the training program that we're going to implement to assist our employees to improve their customer service. Then you should have a mechanism that you put in place to monitor that action plan. Is the action plan that I'm taking to correct this breach or this failure of the system? Because if something goes wrong, the system has failed. And you need to put corrective action to see how you can correct this. And once you've put your corrective actions in place, you need to make sure that you monitor your corrective actions. Meaning, one, if it's, in this case, customer complaint, you are training your employees, you need to see if the training that you're providing to employees, is it achieving its objective? And the only way to check if your corrective actions are achieving the objectives is to measure the problem that you had at the beginning. Remember, we started to say the problem was the customer complained. And you went back to look at it and you realized that no, the problem is that maybe the system failed the employee by not giving them proper training and wara, or whatever it is. then you're implementing the corrective action, which is to train that employee to make them more competent. And once you have implemented that training program to make them more competent, then you need to monitor. Are you still getting the same number of customer complaints that you were getting before you started, or before you started implementing the corrective action? And if you still getting same number of complaints, obviously your training program or your corrective action or your implementation is not working. So you need to find another way of dealing or correcting the problem. Maybe it's not issue of training. Maybe it's just pure issue of competency. Maybe it might be attitude. So you need to go look at the corrective actions, the intervention that you put in place. Is it achieving the objective that you wanted to achieve, which is making sure that your customers are happy? And if your customers are happy, or you are receiving less customer complaints, it means your corrective action is working. But if you're still receiving the same number, then it means the corrective action is not working. Then you need to reassess it, to say if this intervention or this corrective action that I've put in place is not working, how can I, or what type of intervention must I put in place that can work, or that is likely to work? And then you implement that, same thing, you monitor it. Okay, then if the corrective actions that you've put in place, or corrective actions, or it can be actions are working, then you need to see now, how do I prevent them, or how do I prevent this problem from happening again? Because you don't want to pride yourself that I implement corrective actions that works. That's not the way you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be at preventing problems from happening, rather than being effective at taking corrective actions. Okay, so that's how you deal with the corrective actions. And remember, corrective actions are very important for a business, right? Because if you're not taking corrective actions, certain things will boil up, they will keep on growing, and they can become bigger problems. So corrective actions, one of the key input that it makes when you take corrective actions early. You must take them early. Don't wait for long before you take corrective actions, because you might have unresolved issues within your business, right? And you don't want to be dealing with unresolved issues, because that now, they can, as they add up, they might end up being a disaster. It's like when there is maybe conflict between two employees. You shouldn't just let it slide, because this things compound, and it might reach a boiling point where your employees actually physically fight. Or if the customer complains, if you don't take corrective actions immediately, then the issue is we might lose more customers. So it is important in terms of when it comes to timing. If there's a problem, make sure that you take corrective actions, because it becomes more very, 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 very important. And there's an example to say, sometimes you might even think of dismissing the employees. They say, if that's the corrective action that you're supposed to take, then the minute you think, maybe I should dismiss the employee, maybe is the time that you should take that action. Don't say maybe, take the action. Meaning, but follow the process. Remember, disciplinary processes, and maybe giving them a chance for a hearing and all that. But don't have a thought of, I should do something because this thing is going wrong, but you don't take action, because the timing becomes very, very important. As I said, if you don't take a corrective action, then it becomes a problem. Because I remember, okay, now I'm just giving an irrelevant, not irrelevant as such, but not in the business environment. I had a house, and there was a gutter that was blocked, right? And the water kept on leaking into the door. But I keep on putting stuff at the door to prevent the water from coming inside. And that happened for some time until that door was damaged. Look, what I did is I didn't take proper corrective action by maybe going on the roof, checking what is wrong with the water flow. But I just kept on solving the problem of the water that's coming in through the door by putting stuff there to prevent the water from coming into the house. See, in this case, I didn't go to the root cause. I was dealing with the symptom, call it lazy or whatever. But eventually what happened, instead of just going on the roof, I realized that there was some stuff, dirt in the gutters. I was just supposed to remove them and the water would have flowed nicely. But I left it until the front door was damaged. And now I had to replace the front door. And when I was replacing the front door, it was costly. Then I went up the roof and I checked and said, look, there was just dirt in the gutters that I was supposed to have removed, and I wouldn't have bought the door. So that's the example of when there is a problem. If you are not going for a root cause, you will end up spending more time, more money, more resources on the things that you're not supposed to, because you will be treating the symptom. It's better to go and treat the root cause. All right. So as I was saying, that in a business management environment, taking corrective actions early or as quick as you can, as soon as you realize the problem, it will help you resolve the issues. Issues. You will resolve issues quickly within the business, and then the business move forward. And another thing that it makes corrective actions more important. Preferably you do the preventative actions, right? But if you are at a point where you need to do corrective actions, the importance is, if you do them, they will improve the processes. If you do them correctly, the way we have been explaining, they will improve your business processes, because you make sure that, you correct this thing, and remember the last step is to make sure that you prevent that it doesn't happen again. So if you correct it, it will end up making sure that you improve the processes within the business, so that you make sure that it doesn't happen again. So that's the second part, the second point that I need to raise, that it makes taking corrective action important to improving your management system and your business for that matter. And it also improves your customer service, because if there are problems and you solve them, then your business is running smoothly, and it will provide better service to your customers. And happy customers makes a successful business. So remember, you are in business to make sure that your customers are satisfied. So customer satisfaction is key for your business. And that, it also goes back to making sure that if you identify a problem within the business, you take actions as soon as you can to change the issues and make sure that that problem doesn't happen again. All right. And it's also important for risk mitigation. Remember, if you identify a problem, if a problem happens in your business, and remember at the beginning of the lesson you spoke about the risk management and the risk register. If a problem happens and it's not in your risk register, then that means you might have missed it, and you should have not missed it. meaning your risk management strategies or your risk management department or person is not doing the things that they're not doing the things that they're supposed to. If you're a one-man show, that means you're not doing a proper risk management yourself. So risk management becomes a very, very important, and corrective actions, they contribute towards you improving your risk management. Remember, risk management is about managing the risk of the business so that certain things, they don't happen that can cause harm to your business. So as you take corrective actions, then they will improve that risk management process. Make sure that you take it into account to say, okay, we experienced this problem, and then in future, if we experience a problem like this, then this is how we're going to resolve it. And now that improves your business. And it also helps with, corrective actions also helps with business continuity. Meaning, remember I said certain problems, they might start small, and if you don't take corrective actions, they actually grow. Or you can have many small problems that you are not solving, and that can destroy your business. But if you take corrective actions on time, following the process that we spoke about, then you eliminate certain problems, and that will help with your business continuity. But if you have too many problems and you are not solving them, then your business might not be sustainable. Because too many problems, too many holes in the ship will definitely sink the ship. But if you get the hole and then you fix it, another hole you fix it, another hole you fix it, then you can sail nicely. But if there is a hole, you don't fix it, you make shift fixing, and there's another hole, and you end up with 10 holes that you haven't fixed, then that will sink your ship. So with corrective actions, they're very, very important to make sure that you continue to operate, and the problems, they don't grow to the point where they destroy your business. Okay, that's on business continuity. And lastly, compliance. Remember, taking corrective actions will help in terms of making sure that you comply with certain things. If you're complying with your customers' demands and all those things, as well when it comes to law, there are certain things that if an employee is the one who's at fault and you have to implement the disciplinary proceedings, then that now makes you comply with the law. But without taking corrective actions, remember, if an employee maybe is not performing, remember, performance is not a call it a disciplinary issue. It's not a misconduct. Non-performance is the performance issue, and by law, you're required to train that employee, make sure that they are competent, and you put them on a personal development plan to get them to perform the way they're supposed to, or at the level that they're supposed to perform. And failure, which obviously you will take them through a disciplinary process and dismissal and all that. So taking the right corrective actions is also important in a way that it helps you to comply with the law. It makes sure so that it helps you to comply with the legislation and the industry norms and all those things. So as a business, you need to make sure that you take corrective actions as soon as you identify the problem. And remember, I said when you're taking corrective actions, you need to identify the problem. You go to the root cause. You develop an action plan. You implement that action plan. You monitor it. If it's not working, you come up with a new one to rectify the problem. And once you deal with the problem, then you take preventative actions to say, whatever it is that you experience, it should not happen again. what should I do? And as I said, that now it links into your risk management, because as I said, the system will be failing, and when your system or your internal systems and processes fail, then that means there is a problem within the organization, and it needs to be fixed, and that's part of risk management. So corrective action, they fit into your risk management. And risk management, you're just making sure that you don't experience things that you didn't think about, and you don't have the mitigation plan if those things happen. So the sooner you act, the sooner you reduce that risk of whatever that problem might cause in your business. That's that on corrective actions. And I've mentioned that taking them early, making sure that you follow a proper process, and making sure that you prevent those, whatever the problems that you experience, you make sure that they don't happen again. That's on corrective actions. But as I said, it's important for businesses to avoid getting into corrective actions. By all means necessary, avoid getting into corrective action. What you need to do is making sure that you take the preventative actions. You prevent these problems from happening. Only the ones that they go through the system unnoticed, they sneak through the system, they're the ones that need to get to the corrective actions. But other than that, you need to have a proper preventative strategies in place to prevent this problems from happening. Yes, you can prevent all the problems, as I said earlier. But if, one, you have proper systems, policies, and procedures in place. Two, you have proper risk management on lock. Three, you have good recruitment, orientation, training of employees. Then that will reduce the major problems. So these are the key three factors that you need to take into account to make sure that you don't get into the corrective actions. You make sure that you spend your time developing your proper systems, training your employees, making sure that you have proper risk management, and under risk management, and you have your insurances in place to make sure that your business, you don't spend time doing corrective actions. Because if you spend time on corrective actions, then time spent on corrective actions is not productive. The productive time is the one that you spend on preventative actions, so that the problems, they don't come. There are some problems that will leak through, find their way, but it must be limited problems. You must not be on putting out fire. You must be on a mission to prevent the fire from starting. Because once the fire starts, then by the time you finish putting it off, you are tired. Then another one will start. Another one will start. Another one. You might end up in business of putting out fire. But if you move to the preventative action, then it will make a huge difference, because it will stop you from being in the corrective action. Actually, there's a good example on when you look at corrective and preventative action. It's the example of, they say there's a guy who's sitting on the bank of the river, and the river is flowing. Then you see a person in the river drowning, he jumps in, takes them out. Then he sits there, then the person recovers, While he's still busy with that one, there's another one floating in the river, busy drowning there. Jumps in, takes them out. Then another one, and then another one, and then another one is coming. They are coming. So this guy was busy almost half a day, tired and all that. And that's corrective actions. And what they're saying is that if the guy walked up the river, he could have found the person who's throwing these people in the river. So he wouldn't have spent that time jumping in the water, pulling out people. He would have just dealt with the person who's throwing them in the river, and you have used less energy. So for you as an entrepreneur as well, don't jump in and save the drowning people. Go up the river, see who's throwing the people in the river. Those are the preventative actions that you need to take as an entrepreneur rather than the corrective actions. That's the lesson for today. I thank you.